Recording.
Got it. Okay.
So welcome Marco Genovese, an ex-colleague for many years. In the first episode that I have on the OTSEC.io, this is just, if you allow me to say, OTSEC.io is, I'm hosting a training on this platform and some initiatives around it. So it's not an actual corporate, so I don't represent any corporate or anything. We both works for corporates at the time being. But it's just a good window to have a discussion with people whom I know who have a great experience in the OT cybersecurity. We kind of experienced OT, world changing from the days of the SCADA firewall when we used to call it SCADA at that times. We kind of experienced that together. So with us today, the first episode of this podcast is Marco Genovese. Welcome, Marco.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and I hope that this podcast is the first of a long series with a lot of people, and it will be watched by hundreds of thousands of people interested in OT cybersecurity.
I hope so. Thank you. Well, as we were just discussing minutes ago, is that the format is, free format, as if we are having coffee or a bar or anything. So I know your background a bit. So I really want to jump directly to the things that matter. So I want to get your perspective on the DPI for the OT protocols in the OT environment. So what's your take on that? How do you see it?
So I see that DPI can be really, really useful if you want to correctly implement it, because today firewalls and the packet inspection are not used a lot. Most of the firewall or IPS are deployed to do segmentation. And you don't really start to look what the device are saying, what the device are speaking one to each other. But this part is quite interesting and quite important, because knowing how the device are speaking and knowing what they are saying can help you to prevent a lot of issue in your network. I usually think to a couple of things. So, for example, try to imagine that you are doing a training because you deploy some sensor like Yokogawa, Schneider, Siemens, whatever you want. You go to the official training and they tell you that there is a PLC, there is a client, like it can be the TIA portal, for example, to do the configuration. They tell you that in order to configure the PLC, you have to press some button on the client. But usually they don't teach you what happened on the network when you press a button and you send the configuration to the PLC. This part is quite interesting. It's interesting because every developer has developed his own protocol. Most of this protocol has become public, like I don't know, like CIP, for example, or other protocol like this. But each protocol has his own peculiarity that can open some part of the network to possible threat, and only if you know a little bit the protocol, you can react and you can highlight the threat and the problem and understand how your network is vulnerable.
But that's, man, this is really a great view of how you put it in a very nice way. So I have a question to you. Like today, if you are trying to offer like a WAF, web, like application firewall to secure some kind of web applications.
Yes.
You as a security expert, do you need to know how to design a website? Do you need to know do you need to be really a good website web programmer in order to provide the cybersecurity? Is that what it takes? or like a little bit of knowledge, general knowledge about it, but what really matters is how the communication is going in and out to this website?
For me, it's more important to know really well the communication, how it's going, because at the end, I give you a practical example. In our company, there is a technical assistance center, and most of the time, customers call us because maybe they have a potential issue, something like this, and we have to connect them. Maybe the customer is in Vietnam, is in Dubai, is in other country, and you can enter maybe in SSH. So everything you have in your power to see what happened is a TCP dump.
Yeah.
And so in looking what happened in the network, you can you have to try to figure out what is happening on the network. It's quite an interesting and quite difficult job because but it helps you to fully understand how is working. Then the development of the OT part is done by the vendor, by Siemens, Schneider, and so on. And so it's quite necessary to have a strong partnership and to work together. But in this moment, I work for a company, which is Stormshield, where we need to be expert on what is passing on the line. We leave the rest to the vendor, but it's supposed that we really understand well what is happening on the network when there is a transmission.
Yes, so that's a good point, and that's also like what usually try to when we are talking to people from the OT world to educate them about when you are going to the digital transformation. So that means you are changing your entire communication infrastructure from where it used to be like 101 on serial cables directly connected. They are now transmitted inside TCP and UDP, segments and datagram. And that by itself has a lot of great advantage, but also it comes at a cost. The cost could be from the security perspective, and also from inheriting all the network challenges as well, like you need to handle different types of routing, of switching, of sometimes complex redundancy, etc., where it was used to be just a double cable CL101 and everything was simple. It's not that simple, let's be honest, but it was at least understood for those in the world. So now when you look at the digital transformation and moving towards having like connected devices over the network, that also brings the cost, which is I don't know, is it only about performance? Sorry, not performance. It's only about security, and is it also about learning, or like those who are in the OT, they need also to learn more about the networking, routing, switching, etc. What's your take on that?
Yeah, but I think you have highlighted quite well what it will be in the future, because, for example, it's not possible today to have people who has a really deep knowledge in OT, in routing. Between two devices, you can have whatever you want, dynamic routing, you can have BGP, you can have everything. So I think that in the future, the communication will be ciphered from site to site, and you don't care about what is passing in between. But today we have to deal with old industrial protocol. We have a lot of customers that they are still using Modbus, that they are using other protocols, even protocols that they allows you a certain level of security, like OPC, for example. Most of the customer I have met, they don't use cipher encryption because they don't know. They are people used to install OT device. They don't know how to manage a PKI or something like this. So in this moment, we need to have a kind of convergence between IT and OT knowledge. And it reminds me, I don't know if you remember, in the year 2000, I was getting my first certification. It was Avaya. And I remember that in that period, there was the first voice over IP infrastructor.
Yeah.
And in the certification, in the class, there was two type of people. People like me coming from the IT, but with no knowledge about traditional telephony, but a little bit because I started with the BBS time, so before internet. And other people coming from the full telephony, so they were able to debug a line just listening the signal, but with no knowledge about the IT network. So what is an IP? What is a public and private IP? And if you remember, the first voice over IP network were a nightmare. It was really difficult to have something working. Then in that period, there were a lot of new company doing voice over IP. But at the end, after 2-3 years, only the company that they have been able to merge the best of knowledge from the telephony and the network, they could resist and grow, and all the other disappear. And we are living now in a time where there are two competences that you have to mix, the IT and the OT world, and you need to bring them in the same table, in the same team, in order to want, if you want really to grow with your company in this business.
Well, man, you have brought a lot of great idea, and I do recall the days when voice over IP was a thing, a new thing, and literally I could relate to what you are talking about, like those who are coming from the analog signaling, etc., and those from digital, and really it was a journey until both worlds met. It's a good reflection of how the IT OT now is meeting, but I do have kind of an argument on this, is that I see many of the initiatives that are coming from the IT towards the OT, they fail because they are assuming that those in the OT world, they are a bit outdated, or they don't know what's the high tech is about. So even on some processes, or even on some services, like imagine that someone would come to an OT and say, I have a vulnerability scanner and I will scan your entire network actively, and then they'll start to scan the networks, and I'm sure what would be the result of that. And the same thing if someone is trying to say, okay, so I do provide a pen testing service for many years, and I can do it for your factory. I can do a pen testing and provide you with a comprehensive report about all the issues that you have. So those who are coming from the IT with their own assumptions, also they are causing a big issue. So what do you think about those approaches?
I was thinking that I imagine that like you, I participate as a speaker to a lot of events. So next week I have to go in Poland in InfoSec, but I've been in a lot of OT at CeBIT in Germany, in Hannover Messe in Germany, and so a lot of time you have to speak about OT cybersecurity. So usually with our job, you arrive there, you do the speech, and then you have to go to discuss with customers. Maybe you have a booth, something like this. But one time you have to try to sit on the other side and to look the face of the people near you when there is a speaker speaking about OT for cybersecurity. Because I've been in an event in France, and I was sitting with on the other part. I was listening the people speaking, and it was really possible to spot what type of person there was near you, if it was coming from IT or it was coming from OT. Because when on the stage there was someone saying, okay, we do a sensor that is detecting an anomaly and send the command to the firewall to block all the traffic. And the IT people were saying, yeah, it's fantastic. OT people were saying, no way that you try something like this in my network. So sometimes we speak as an IT professional, we speak, but sometimes it could be really interesting to listen what the people from the OT side they have to say, because it's really funny. Sometimes you see that there is there are some functionalities that are more marketing oriented than practical. So sometimes you have to be with the foot on the earth and to say, yes, there are things that they are. I can do an active scan. I can do a sensor that detect anomaly and send the command to the firewall to block something. But it's really nice on the marketing point of view. But at the end, you have to place it in a OT environment that has to work 24/7 without to stop. So it can be quite a nightmare for some people.
That's interesting. I think there won't be a discussion that I will ever have on the OT cybersecurity, or like in particular, or in general in cybersecurity, without spending at least like the first part of any discussion, just clearing out all the marketing brainwashing over there, and people trying to bring some kind of terms, assuming that this is kind of a technology or something unique, or just like another marketing term. And that's always a challenge. I strongly believe. Well, on the OT protocol, okay.
Yeah.
I think out there are hundreds of OT protocols, right? And some of them they have an open RFC, some of them they have some open forums, some kind of like a foundation for something that is providing the specification of this protocol, etc. But there are some other proprietary protocols, maybe those that have been used so many times that kind of made public, so people are able to be able to deal with them. But the challenge comes when you are going to an environment where they're using a protocol for the first time. So what's your approach in this? How do you?
It's interesting because for what I have seen, RFC, while are quite strict in the IT world, in the OT world is more like a suggestion. So I've seen a lot of protocols that they are standard protocols that they are quite defined well over a standard like UMAS on Modbus, for example. Then you have other protocol like LACBus, SoftBus on Modbus, which are completely different and also even mixed with the protocol, because in a LACBus communication, the first frame is a Modbus frame. So it's quite complex to be able to understand if we are talking a language or another one.
Mhm.
Then there are protocol like CIP, for example. In CIP, you have a range of value that where everybody can develop what he wants. So classes, new classes, something like this. So for each protocol, if you are ready to do deep inspection of protocol, you need to be ready also to catch the part of the protocol that they are out of standard, and every protocol has a part which is out of standard. So what in my experience, I have never said to a customer, yes, it works. When I go to an industrial customers and I have to place a firewall, I said, okay, we can just do test, replaying, pickup, something like this. But if you want, and if you want to be sure that everything is working fine, we need to do a proof of concept. We need to do a test, because in the energy world, for example, I have never seen two protocols used in the same way. So it's quite hard sometimes. And even I think also the RFC are not well defined, because sometimes I've seen RFC that can lead to different interpretations. Sometimes I fight even with the R&D, because they say it's written in the RFC. No, the RFC is saying another thing. So in the IT world is easier, because there are protocols that there are a lot of years on the market. There have been a lot of discussion. In the OT world, the protocols are more closed. So usually when we go to a customer to do some tests with protocol that we don't know, the first things is to be less intrusive as possible. So to work in IDS mode, just whatever you are going to put inside the sensor, firewall, whatever you want, you cannot risk to block anything. Then one thing that I really like is to inspect the protocol with just a pickup a TCP dump. So usually we take TCP dump and we analyze it with the R&D in order to understand if everything is going well. We have some tools in our company because we create firewall IPS. So we have tools that they are able to reinject the pickup into our system in order to understand if there are alerts or things like this, or anomaly or malformed packet. But I have to tell you the truth that a lot of time we find some customization, we can call it, and a lot of time there are even protocols that they don't exist in nature. So the customization only done for one single customers, and so you have to deal with it. You need to be able to react quickly and to implement a workaround or to implement the possibility to bypass this exception.
Do you think, as mainly you are providing a firewalls, right, and IPS, that includes support for OT protocols? And just on like a side note, when we were saying like RFC, it's like the Internet Engineering Task Force, they use the RFC, I think, request for comments, that kind of a reference, let's put it this way, that has a text description of the protocol. So if anyone is developing any kind of application that needs to communicate with this protocol, so they can refer to this one, like, let's say, like single source of truth that describes how the protocol is supposed to be, which, as you have highlighted, in IT, it's more strict and regularly updated, but in the OT, maybe it hasn't been updated for quite some time, and maybe not everybody is respecting the RFC. So that's the case. Now, going back to the question I wanted to ask you. So since you are mainly a technology that works inline, so you're not out of, so you are in between. That means you need to handle the protocol analysis and detect any anomaly, detect any malicious content, and then on the fly to be able to like take action that if it's mature implementation, let's say, so you have because I know that you can do it in an IDS mode, so you're only sending alerts, and after everything is okay and you have confirmation, so you can move to the complete IPS and prevention. Now the point is, in the same environment where your firewall or your next generation firewall IPS, let's name it any kind of marketing term, is doing its job, why still the customers are also bringing an IDS from the technologies that providing a network IDS for the OT? Which one do you think is more efficient, or they need to coexist together? So how do you see that?
It depends. So in this moment, I've seen a lot of, I think one of the biggest issue is the visibility of what happened on the network. So this is the reason that all the people are starting with a technology like can be for Scout, SEC IoT, or Nozomi or something like this. So they want to have a visibility. They want to have a network map of what happened. The visibility of the network map is like when you go to the doctor. So the doctor is telling you that you have a sickness, but then you have to take the cure. And so the cure is to isolate, to do segmentation or something like this. With the firewall, it depends then what type of firewall you are going to use to do segmentation, because if you want to do a really good segmentation, you have to limit to the authorized user, to the authorized command, to the authorized protocol. So in this way, you have a really good segmentation, but I think the continuity to have something that is doing cartography is quite important. So Sometimes it can be done by the firewall, but if you have done a segmentation in a good way, because if, for example, if you have a segment of a network and there is lateral movement on the segment, sometimes the firewall is not able to detect this part, because if you have a DMZ and then there is a switch and there is something that is moving in the switch to try to infect this part, you can detect it with the sensor and not with the firewall. So I think the two technology are really, really important. So you have to start with the kind of sensor to do a cartography to understand the matrix of who is communicating with who. Then you have to apply the IEC 62443. And so you have to define zone and conduit, and you have to define who is able to speak with who. And then you have to continue. So it's a process that is continuous, because you have to detect the lateral movement, and also in a network there is always a lot of, for example, new IoT. So in a factory is not the fact that you don't have to think. People doesn't have to think that because in the industry, the life cycle is really long, 10 years, something like that. Nothing is changing. No, there are machines that they are 10, 15 years working, but there are some IoT like camera or something like this that they are added every day. And so you need to have a continuous analysis in order to detect when there is an anomaly or there is a potential issue on the network.
Yeah, I like that. I never thought of it this way, because we tend to always assume that the OT is a very static environment.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't change when
not anymore.
not anymore. Yeah.
Now, for example, there are safety lock that they are connected with MQTT. They send the data in a broker in the cloud, and so you have even now with the energy transition, that the green energy, the people are really they pay attention about what they are spending. So there are even the bulb that they are connected, and they are able to communicate the so every day you really risk coffee machine. You know really well the coffee machine use case. So even coffee machine are connected. So it's really risky.
Yeah, it is. I completely agree. Well, that's another wrong assumption, and for some reason, the world of OT has a lot of wrong assumptions. To be honest, like. For example, I don't know, I have watched some time ago a discussion that was done by the S4 event by Dale Peterson. He was speaking about when you bring the industrial IoT to the picture, so are we still going to use the Purdue reference, because the IoT is completely different architecture. So we don't have those layers. We have sensors connected to the broker in the cloud directly. So this changes entirely everything. And the problem is that the adaptation of those new IoT devices, they don't come with a thorough study about, okay, so that is going to change my architecture. It actually was just driven by a need. I need to bring some kind of thermal cameras and implement them here. Somehow they might be connected locally, and somehow they might be also uploading data to the cloud directly. So all of a sudden they have twisted the entire architecture so your point in this is really it added really
even the protocols are changing, because, for example, BACnet is going to implement secure BACnet, and secure BACnet, instead to have a BACnet router inside the network, they use a hub in the cloud. So it's work a little bit like MQTT. So it can have a hub on premise and a backup in the cloud. So is able to something you connect data, you send data on premise, but if your hub is not available, you can switch to the cloud. OPC is working on OPC for cloud using MQTT as a transmission. So it's the evolution of all the industrial protocol are going in this direction. So I think more of them will use the MQTT approach. So a broker in the cloud, and you connect, and then you don't care if the device is in your home, is outside, but it's connected in the cloud.
Marco, you are referring about the OPC of the UA, right? Not
Yeah.
the old HDA, DA, AE,
No, PCU.
UA. Okay.
And another thing that we are talking about industry, but from my point of view, we should put in the industrial world also hospitals, because they have the same vulnerability of the industrial world, but they have also two protocols like HL7 and DICOM that they have the same vulnerability of the industrial protocol. So they are not authenticated, they are not in clear. They have tried to develop a new version that they support encryption, but they are not retrocompatible. So most of the hospital in the world that they are still using HL7 and DICOM in version that they are not cipher and not encrypted. They have device that they have to work 24/7, and you cannot imagine that they are an industrial world. So it's completely different. So we don't have to be strict in the Purdue model, but we have to think in terms of vulnerability and in terms of transmission.
Yeah, that's again another great point. We know that the definition of OT today is that includes every cyber physical system, which is industrial in nature or non-industrial in nature. BACnet, I would think maybe is not considered as an industrial. It's more, like the building management or building automation. Same thing for the healthcare, DICOM, HL7, and other protocols. And with some of, like I've been exposed to many environments in the healthcare, and we had to use the same technologies that we are using in the OT. Exactly, we are using the same technology we are using in the healthcare for those medical devices, because eventually they are cyber physical systems. So there is something physical, has sensors, has reading, has etc., and it has a computer that is managing it. So at the end of the day, it's an OT. The problem is in OT, in the industrial part of the OT, so there are more, like I would say more strict in terms of the access, in terms of this and that. And then
Exactly.
you go to a healthcare hospital, you find one username shared by all the nurses that are using it on all the machines without any sense of security.
It's normal, because when you say you are in a factory and you see someone seated on a chair with his laptop, you say, are you authorized to be there? But if you go in a hospital, by definition, there are just people waiting for the doctor. So all people with smartphone, with computer, something like this. So it's a nightmare. It's even more difficult to secure than an OT environment.
Yeah, but they are common in one thing, is that the impact of, God forbid, a cyber attack that could go on the OT in general, either industrial or non-industrial, could literally cause, like casualties, could cause people to lose life, right? So that's why both worlds need really a big attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned a lot about different types of protocols, and you are saying that BACnet, they have the BACnet security soon. OPC UA, I know from long time, in theory they have the PKI support and they can do it. And you say that there's a challenge for those who are doing, like, writing a program in ladder logic is again going to do also PKI infrastructure and manage the trust relationship between certificates. So it's going to be really hard. Now, it's not only going to be hard for those who are going to deploy it, but also hard for those who are going to secure it as well. Because I don't honestly, like personally, I might be wrong. Well, mostly I might be wrong, because I think I'm thinking a bit of different from many other people. I don't think, my perspective on the low levels, that we need really encryption. We might need, like hashing for integrity check, but encryption is not really mandatory at those low levels. Still, like all the initiatives I see around the security is to add the encryption layer for the protocols. But imagine there is like an HMI has got compromised, or a unique workstation, and it has an encrypted communication with the PLC. So you are actually, like securely allowing this malware or this attack to actually go all the way to the control layer and perform the attack. So do you agree on this, or do you have different perspective?
But from my point of view, when sometimes it's better, because in this moment we don't have this level of convergence between OT. So people deploying OT device, they don't know how to manage a PKI. So sometimes it's better to completely detach. So you can assume that if someone is deploying a PLC, it will do it in an unsafe, unsecure way. So you can place in front of it some other device that they can take the lead to cipher the communication. So from my point of view, the person who has to deploy the OT part doesn't have to be an expert of the encryption, this part, because you have to create a network in a way that two things are coexist and they are independent. So you can be sure that someone is deploying a new sensor, and you have to be sure that even if he made a mistake, this mistake won't impact the communication or the network, because in any case, the communication is ciphered. Regarding the necessity to cipher the communication, for me is important because one of the most easy way that you can, how I can say, one of the issue of the industrial protocol is that doing a TCP dump, you can have a complete view of what there is in the network. You don't even need to do an active scan, because if you do an active scan, you can be detected in the network because people see that there is someone doing a scan. But if you do a TCP dump, you're going to analyze the traffic. And if you look at backnet communication, you can have an inventory of what you have in the network. You can have a system to switch on the light. You can have a system to a fire alarm system, for example. You can do a complete map of the network if you want to launch an attack in a completely transparent way, without to notify any type of alerts or something like this that you are doing this job. Even in IEC 104, for example. In IEC 104, if you take a look to the command that the people are saying, you see what are the electric relay, electric switch that you can attack. You can send the same command, you can replay the attack. So it's quite easy. Then there are even protocol like BACnet is the easiest one, because they are really speaking in a natural language. So you don't even need to be an expert to understand what, because the command are, hello, I am a fire alarm sensor, and the other are answering, oh, me too, I have this IP, you can connect to me, you can send commands. So it's quite easy to do an inventory in a complete transparent way, without that nobody is not noticed that you are doing this type of thing. So this is the reason that for me is a really important encryption.
Yeah, I agree with you, of course. And, like, as you said, like protocols, many protocols, even Modbus, by the way, can provide some kind of identification information. Like there is some commands that you can get what's the vendor, what's the make, what's the version. The same thing when BACnet exchange about, it has a vendor ID, one of the protocol fields, same as CIB and many other protocols as well. So you don't even know what's being communicated, but you can also tell exactly the vendor, the product version, so you can easily exploit. But my worry is the following. So if someone is already in the network track and able to do TCP dump, that's it, man. Like it's done, right? So it's end game if someone already have an IP access. And this brings us also the next, after we finish this point, on the insecure protocols by design in OT. So, but before that, I think, yeah, it makes sense. What is going to be very challenging for those who are doing the monitoring, because if your value is about passively looking at the network traffic, analyzing that traffic and just extracting information and features about it, so you can provide the level of visibility, classification, and mapping the devices in a very nice visual way, so you can understand exactly what you have, etc. Now, if you bring the encryption to the formula, so you are avoiding some kind of risk, but also you are losing a big thing as well. So you're losing the entire visibility. Unless there is, I don't know, do we have any firewalls today that can do, SSL decryption in between and see what's inside?
I don't think that there is any type of firewall that we got some requests in the past, but you have also to deal with one thing in the industrial network, that there are many protocols that they have issues with the latency. So when you're talking in the energy sector, for example, you have GOOS, you have SV. When you're talking manufacturing, you have Profinet IRT, Profinet RT. So they are all protocols that you cannot, in a Profinet IRT network, you are not even allowed to place a firewall. So try to imagine.
Yeah,
We have,
yeah.
I met with a customer, we have tried to, just to do an academic exercise to place two IAD connected with VPN IPsec layer 2 and to move some goose traffic on this. And we had some alerts because the latency was going over the 3 millisecond, which is the level of the tree message in a goose traffic. And so it was rising some issue. But this is the reason. In fact, is not suggested to try to implement this type of decryption. Also because they are not using just server certificate, but also client and server certificate. So it's quite complicated to decipher the communication. But I think in the future, the communication will be encrypted end to end. So from the HMI to the, so we move the weakness in another direction. So
Mhm.
it's probably it will, we need a lot of years because when you develop a new protocol now, before to implement this new protocol, you need several years. But probably in the future, instead to exploit the communication, you will exploit weaknesses on the device, malformed packet or things like this, and denial of service or something like this. Not anymore the communication, but the device itself.
Yeah. Well, that's a good perspective. Time requirements is really critical. Like you mentioned, the goose, SMV or SV is even, it requires less latency. I think can go up to nanosecond, where like the goose maybe millisecond, MMS on a little bit in the substation higher. It has a different requirement. So yeah, so that's also to the point. So yeah, like you prevent one risk, you reduce one risk, or you get rid of one risk, but at the same time you have way more things to be considered. And that's a challenge, I think, in general, when you want to bring a cybersecurity controls to the OT without understanding the impact of the operation, understanding exactly what's the operation. So that's also back to the original point. So but thank you. This is really a great point. Yeah, that's a good consideration why we don't need to have that. Even the time synchronization in the energy in substations, for example, they don't use the PTP because it's considered as a slow. Sorry, they don't use NTP. Sorry, they use PTP because
PTP.
NTP
Yeah.
is very slow. Where the precision time protocol is like it meets the synchronization requirements with the master, grandmaster clock, etc.
And it's
So
a protocol that required to have device that support it, because every device that you are going across with the PTP signal, you have to rewrite the PTP. So it's quite complex. So from our side, when you are a vendor, when you want to enter in a network where there are some particular protocol, you know that sometimes there are a lot of other protocol all around, because for example, if you have energy, you have HSR, you have PRP network, PRP protocol. If you are talking about GOOS, you are talking about PTP. So when you are talking about one single protocol, there are a lot of other protocol all around that they have to continue to work.
yeah.
So it's the things is more complex. This is the reason that sometimes you need a little bit of visibility of what happened on the network point of view, because in the network point of view, if you learn that the protocol has to be really fast, then you learn that you have to synchronize the device, and so you need another protocol to be able to synchronize the device. Then it's most of the protocol are related, and only if you study a little bit how they are working, you can understand how to secure a network.
Yeah, and as usual, I completely agree. I would say one thing, I was trying to avoid any kind related to marketing stuff, but I just want to say something in general, like what I see usually in Forescout, for example, where I work at the moment, is that we always try to start from the foundation of visibility before taking any kind of initiative later. So let's achieve visibility first, then we can, like at a later stage, we can try to enforce the control or try to look for risk, for exposure, for threats, etc. But first, let's establish the visibility, and that's usually the big challenge, because there are some blind spots, there are some invisible devices by default. Maybe they haven't been communicating for quite some time. So first, you need to make sure you bring the light to each and every corner of the environment where you can discover all the assets, and later on you can start with your initiatives. But the other perspective is that it's really hard, like what you have said, like, so you may discuss one protocol, as you have said. I'm just like quoting what you have said. You may discuss one protocol, but it doesn't come alone. It comes with a complete suite of other protocols. So that's really a great perspective. Now, insecure protocol by design, like the term itself, when in my book, I quoted what Dale Peterson said. Especially, I think he was the first one to say insecure by design, to give this tag to the OT protocols in general and OT devices and assets. So that's the norm. That's what we have today. So you can add 100 way of providing a protection and everything, and then if an attacker has an IP access inside the low levels, then it's end game, right?
Yeah. Yes, also you have to think that we are talking about protocol, but if you are also talking about device, so I am in front of a laptop and every day there are proposal of update. But if you have a firewalls, you know that every 2-3 months there are security patch that you have to apply. But when you have a PLC, or when you have a device, or when you have an IoT device, nobody is going to install patches until you have a issue. And so this is the problem, that even if you have a solution that they provide, suppose tomorrow there is a PLC vendor that is providing a patch every day. So you can imagine that it's more secure than other, that they don't provide patch, but it's not possible to go to install or to block even because after that you have installed a patch, usually there is a reboot. So a reboot means that you pray for a couple of minutes that everything is going well. And if you have to reboot a lot of device in a network, it means that your production is unstable. So from my point of view, even if one day someone will comes to you with a OT solution, which is secure by definition, and you say this one is a secure, you have always to continue to consider it unsecure by design. Because there is no way to apply patches or like you do with your laptop or with your smartphone when you're at home.
And also there is a wrong perception about the patches for the OT, because not every vulnerability needs to be patched. Imagine there's a vulnerability related to a remote code execution on a PLC that is running on Modbus. So even you patch it, but the protocol itself is open, doesn't have any kind of authentication or anything. So not everything needs to be patched, right? So there are different prioritization of which vulnerabilities that needs to be patched, etc. So and you only need to schedule that within the maintenance window of time, and it's really hard. So I agree. We can never say that we have a secure by design. It's really hard. Because secure by design now, then it can open another different, like way of where the risk could be coming from. Maybe it's coming from the supply chain. So even before even you have access to the software of that device, maybe it has a hardware chip placed, and you need to deal with that. So we'll never get to the point where we have like secure by design, but at least to have like ready for security by design, like to be some kind of possibility. But like I don't want to be optimistic in this, knowing the majority of operations today are running on not even on legacy protocol, but also on a legacy communication as well, which they are still yet to enter the era of digital transformation, and then to do it right from the first time, and then the large like majority of those who are running on insecure protocol. And I don't know if if you have ever come across any I don't know, OT like environment where they're already using the encryption, or it is just in theory like the IPv6 that never happens. I don't know. Did you see this? Did you see encryption is really in production?
No. I've seen a lot of it was funny. One day I've seen one customer. I've gone to see a customer in a water distribution field. So, and there was a lot of OPC UA. There was a OPC UA server, and because of this customer was typing login and password in order to access to the OPC, I was thinking that the whole network was encrypted, but the half of the network was Modbus because the OPC server has to retrieve the information. So sometimes the encryption in the OT gives you a false feeling that you are safe, but at the end, if it's not applied to the whole network, is not good. Is not really protecting your network, because you think that you are safe, but you are not. I have a lot of customers that they prefer to detach the two things. They prefer to have a solution to create a cipher communication between two devices. For example, try to imagine water distribution. You have aqueduct tower that they have sensor made with Modbus that they are sending data to a remote center. So they prefer to keep the sensor as they are with Modbus communication, but they place something in front to cipher the communication to the encryption. So for what I've seen for the moment, most of the customers, the feeling that I have looking at the customers, that they prefer to maintain the two things separated. Also because probably in this way, they don't have to change all devices that maybe are not supported. When you have a geographical distributed network like oil and gas or water distribution or energy distribution, you have thousands of devices. So if you want to change to add something that is supporting encryption, sometimes it's easier to place something in front and to keep the device as it is.
Yeah. It's not the matter of just okay, I want to move to this new encrypted protocol. It's a matter of thousands of it's not easy. Well, at the beginning you mentioned a bit about the I don't want, like, if we'll go on the segmentation and conduits, it's a big subject also, but I'm interested about the IT/OT conversions. Where do you think this process or this journey of the IT/OT convergence should start from? Is it from people, or it's from the application, or it's from the infrastructure? So how, from your perspective, how do you achieve the convergence between IT and OT?
From us is I think also in the training. So in our company, for example, we have created two different paths for training. One for people coming from IT, but they are missing the OT part, and so we try to train them in a certain way. And some other people that are coming from the OT and they are missing the IT part. So we have made two different paths that they lead to the same type of certification at the end. And I think starting with the the training is one of the most important things. I've started to work with some school, for example, and in particular with the school is called CSB school in Lyon. We have started to do a course on industrial protocols. So for the moment, we have made one seminar on industrial protocol and the other one for advanced industrial protocol. And sometimes I go also to participate to speech in management universities, because, for example, if you have a university where it's supposed to have people that they will become the manager of the future, I think it's really, really important to start also to explain them what is the industrial cybersecurity and what is the industrial priority in terms of cybersecurity. You know, the classical is that the availability is more important than confidentiality or something like this. So it's really important that they understand what does it mean to guarantee cybersecurity, but to keep production 24/7. So this part, from my point of view, we should achieve in a couple of years, only if you started to work a lot with the school, for example. And I think I'm really lucky because I work in a company that allows me to go in the school sometimes. We have a lot of partners, and so in school we create a special program for teachers or something like this. And I think is the only way not to keep OT cybersecurity like something that high level. I don't want to share my information, but the most important things for me is to share with everybody, to share success case, but also the case that they are not assassins. So when you lose a customer, for example, when you lose a customer because you promise the customer that you do segmentation, and then you block completely the production and the customer. So I think it's important that the people know that if you are going in a direction, probably you fail, and if you're going in another direction, probably you have more chance of success. So this is the most important part. For me, IT-OT convergence is going through the teaching and to the promotion of a new generation of people and professionals, that they are not just a technician, but even manager, that they have to know what does it mean, OT cybersecurity.
Awesome. So a side question, do you teach in Lyon in French or in English?
French, English, it depends what sometimes in French, sometimes in English, and but it's nice because I've seen, for example, last 2 weeks ago we had a class of 7-8 people. And it's really interesting because they are coming from different experience. So there are people just coming from the school, a young boy that they are coming from the school, but also people that they are working since maybe 20 years in the OT world, and they wanted to improve their competence on industrial protocol, because in the OT world, they see a PLC, they see TIA portal, they see program like this, but they don't know how these are communicating one to each other. So they come because they want to have this type of visibility.
Yeah. So to put a summary here is that IT-OT convergence begins from the people, not from the systems. So people should be aware, understand both what do they expect from the other side of I don't know, wall or edge or wherever they stand, and then systems can easily be integrated, right? So it's not an issue. Like, you can eventually decide on what are the use cases that we are going to use in between as to reach or to achieve by this convergence. But if the people don't understand it, it's really hard.
Yeah, we have firewall, we have sensor, we have already all the ingredients to do OT cybersecurity. The problem is that If you have the fridge full of ingredients, but you are not able to cook, you are not eating. So it's you need to have manager and people that they are able to take all these ingredients and to put them together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and if you look at where the future is heading, everything is going to be connected. And at some point, those who are doing the OT cybersecurity today are the ones who are supposed to be securing the future when everything literally is actually connected. And that's a thing. And what you're doing, the privilege you got to go and teach, like students at schools and, raise the awareness around the OT cybersecurity is really, really great and appreciated. And as expected, like whenever we are having any kind of discussion, I don't have a sense of time. We're almost like an hour. So, so I don't want to take
Yeah.
any more of your time, Marco. Really appreciate, immediately when I reach out to you, I told you I want to start with you on the first episode and you immediately say yes. And I know that today, right now, you're in holidays. So thank you for taking the time out of your holidays while you are in the mountains in Italy. So I hope you
Yeah.
enjoyed this of your holidays.
It
Yeah,
was it was a pleasure, and do not hesitate to call me if you have other episodes,
yeah.
other type of discussion.
We honestly did not touch base on everything I was hoping to do, but because I know the depth and the breadth of your knowledge, we went into a bit of into some verticals, but definitely I'm looking forward for more episodes to discuss more subjects. I know your expertise people would be really benefiting from. Maybe it would be a bit challenging to some people who are not really strong on the especially in the protocol might find this discussion a bit of too advanced, let's put it this way. But that's the level where you can get from when you deal with the
Yeah,
with people in the OT cybersecurity. Yeah. So
yeah.
Marco, once again, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see you again.
Okay, me
Thank you.
too, and see you. The world of cybersecurity is quite small. I'm sure we are going to cross a GITEX or something like this one of these days.
Definitely, definitely. All right, man.
Okay, bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye.